I'm going to call the meeting to order at 7:03. Just need an approval for the minutes from 1/7, which if anybody needs a copy, they're there on the end of the.
So moved.
All right. It was moved and seconded, I can say that. First on the agenda was the discussion where the commission feels our focus should now be. Do we feel that we need any more interviews? Are we good on that? Like, where do we feel we need to put our attention next?
Sure, I'll jump in. It seems to me that, or it's apparent to me that the city would benefit from the home rule charter. So my suggestion would be the committee move forward and to develop a draft of the home rule charter that we could, and what we do is whether we submit it to council for review. But I think the next thing we should do is create a draft.
So this would be a question probably for Michael because Debbie's not on.
Michael, can you hear everybody speaking? Here, you'll need to unmute.
I can hear who has spoken so far.
Okay,
Oh, good
great.
stuff. So do we need to first form a statement to put on the ballot to have the citizens vote as to whether we should start drafting, or should we just start drafting?
The latter, it would be where the Government Study Commission takes a formal vote with a motion and a second to or not to move toward drafting a home rule charter.
Okay, do we want to do that tonight?
Oh, I'll do that now. Can I make a
Wait.
motion?
Who are we missing? Who are we missing?
Oh, just Ray.
Just Ray. Okay.
Can I do that now?
She's the chair, but I wouldn't see any reason
If we're
why not.
comfortable,
I mean, we,
Yeah.
so what we're saying is this isn't the straw ballot at this
Yeah.
time.
this would be
This
an
is the
actual
motion.
vote. This would
The
be an
motion,
actual
I
vote.
make a motion that this committee, government committee, move forward with creating a draft home rule charter.
Is there a second?
I would just remove the word
I
draft.
was thinking, okay.
Yeah,
All
we're gonna write a home rule charter.
Yeah.
And then
right.
we'll do drafts to get there, but yeah.
Okay, can we have that wording more specifically so I can make sure I get this right? Move that the
Make a
commission.
motion that this committee move forward with creating a home rule charter for the city of New Paltz.
Second.
Okay.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That was a formality. Okay, it was unanimously passed that the commission feels we should begin to draft a charter. So another question for Michael, where do we stand as far as a scribe?
As far as what?
Having someone that help us draft it.
Oh, the scribe. I'm waiting for my bosses in Harrisburg to make an official decision on the funding of the Strategic Management Planning Program grant request that does include funds to pay a consultant to write a home rule charter under your auspices, as well as I would continue to work with all of you and the consultant in the writing of the home rule charter. The consultant will be Debbie Grass. I've not told her that yet. I'm waiting for the city, which the decision, the letter may go to either the mayor or Mick, the city manager. I hope to have that letter out. When I say I mean the department. I would hope that we make a decision, at the secretary level of my department by the end of this month, if not the first week or two of February. So I'll check on the status of the grant request and report back to all of you on Thursday, February 4, as to where that stands. And if I'm in a position to tell Debbie that she has been selected officially, then I will do that. So it's just a matter of hopefully a few weeks at the most before the letter goes out to the city approving the grant. That's not only just to pay a consultant to write the charter with all of you, but it's also for some other implementation activities that came out of recommendations in the Strategic Management Planning Program report.
Is there anything the commission can be doing in the meantime that we should have put our focus towards while we're waiting?
I would revisit the structure of government that you would like to pursue and generally outline, verbally, what it is you're looking for, what you would like to see. Some of the key questions that you can deliberate over would be a few items that are key. Number one, do you want to move to or pivot to a council manager form of government rather than a strong mayor council manager form of government? Number two, what elected positions do you want to retain or abolish? And when I say that, I'm referencing the elected city treasurer and the elected city controller. Now, should the Government Study Commission choose to eliminate the elected positions of controller and treasurer, the officials holding the elected position will serve out their term of office. If the Home Rule Charter passes, they'll still serve out their elected terms of controller and treasurer. But I think those are three key questions that you want to deliberate over, talk about, exchange ideas and views and benefits, etc., that you can do before Debbie comes on board officially to start working on the chapters or the articles of the Home Rule Charter.
Okay, maybe I missed a question. I have two that I wrote, pivot from to council manager, and the other one was what elected positions do we want to retain?
Right, but I divided it into three. Number one, what structure of government do you want?
Mhm.
Number two, do you want to retain or not the elected treasurer? Number three, do you want to retain or keep the elected controller?
Okay, that's where I'd combine that all into the second question.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, any thoughts on that right now?
I have a question for Michael. Michael, can you hear me?
I can hear you, not clearly, but I hear you, but not loudly.
Outdoor rules.
Yeah, just project.
Oh, okay. The question I had was, in the financial assessment of the city, there was a recommendation to hire a financial manager.
Yeah, finance officer, yes.
Add that to a position in the Home Rule Charter?
Yes, that would be a key position along with the manager position in the Home Rule Charter to provide, to fulfill the duties and responsibilities dealing with the budget and cash management, accounting, purchasing, audit preparation, payroll, interim financial reporting, all of the key activities that deal with the finances of the city. Now, normally, the third class city code that I'm sensing you want to move away from does allow for that position to be created, either through the director of accounts and finance, assuming that position that would still be an elected position, but would be a fiscal officer, or appointing someone that has the credentials, experience, and expertise. If you do a home rule charter, my sense is that, not if, but doing a home rule charter, you would have an appointed position. The manager would appoint with the consent of council as one department head along with other department heads, police chief, fire chief, public works director, again, finance director, any department head that you would have under the home rule charter would be where the manager appoints, but the city council consents to the appointment.
Yeah, that's good information.
The Strategic Management Planning Program report did recommend a restructuring of the financial management responsibilities within the city of Beaver Falls, focusing on the importance of appointing a finance director, and which I think underlies or correlates with the office of the elected city treasurer. In a home rule charter, if you're going to have a finance director, it would be normally assumed that the elected city treasurer position would be folded into the finance director or fiscal officer position. The duties, responsibilities, the function, and the relationship that he or she would have with the city management and city council.
Michael, my question was, do we want the person evaluating the city's finances or providing us with an annual report on the health of the city financially? Do we want that to be someone from in-house, or do we want this to be a consultant or just an outside agency?
If you're talking about a state of the city financial report, that would normally come from the finance director, finance officer, and be presented by the city manager, or doing it as a combined joint effort. Or it could be prepared by this the finance officer and the city manager, and could be presented by the mayor. But it would be done in-house, to answer your question directly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Now, you would still have a CPA independent audit done by a third party.
Oh, yeah, that's just to make sure that everything's above board and what's in the audit is correct and not.
Well, the audit is not only a financial audit, looking at the propriety, the legality, and the appropriateness of expenditures vis-a-vis your home rule charter and other state statutes, and even the third class city code. But it's also a compliance audit, making sure that you're following the laws of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. That's normally done by an outside third party CPA firm. Right now, the elected controller also has the ability to do a report like that as well. But doing a state of the city, that could be done in concert with the finance officer, the manager, and presented by the mayor or by the manager, annually. And that could be put in the home rule charter.
Yeah.
Did you have a question, Bill?
But I looked it up. But I still have another question. My question was about the controller's duty. The city controller, and I was going to ask.
The controller's duty is to be what I would call an independent auditor within the city. Main duty is to sign checks that are going out to make sure that they're quote legal and within the bounds of the budget. And that's the main duty of the controller.
So I thought the treasurer did that.
Pardon me?
The treasurer doesn't do that?
No.
Oh, okay.
See, what the city treasurer would do
He is-
relative to signing checks is to verify and authenticate that there is money in the account from which the monies are coming from to pay a liability or an obligation. In the front end, they also receive taxes and fees, real estate tax and other fees, and then deposit them into a depository designated by the city council, and then provide a report to council, to Mick, and to the controller, relative to the monthly deposits and expenditures that have been made. Because again, the treasurer is a signature on checks that go out to third-party vendors and payroll checks, etc. Now, those types of functions would be transferred to a finance officer should the elected position of controller be, abolished, eliminated.
So both functions would be under that title?
Pardon me?
The duties of the treasurer and the duties of the controller would be put in that one position?
Yes, they would normally be folded into or blended in with the duties, responsibilities, and the function of an appointed finance officer who reports directly to the manager.
Jerry, what are your thoughts?
That's what I was gonna
Yeah.
ask.
Controller, what are
That's
your
my
thoughts?
next question.
Yeah.
Well, it's gonna look like a conflict of interest, but I don't think the controller needs to be an elected position. It could be an appointed position, as long as it meets certain qualifications. The only reason I say that is that as it currently stands, controller is the only one that's really independent from the ones that make the budget, create the budget, or have a voting council, because city controller doesn't have a vote.
Does it have to be a CPA or anything like that?
Can it be a CPA?
It doesn't have to be.
No, you have to be a qualified accountant.
Oh, okay.
That doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a CPA. But we do have a CPA that does the audit annually for the city of Beaver Falls currently. So I would suggest that you keep it, the cost of city control is $2,500 a year. I think that's worth having a third set of eyes signing the check rather than having two signatures. And that's my opinion.
So you think it doesn't need to be elected, but it's still important?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
As long as they're qualified.
Whether the qualifications are literally written into the home rule charter
Right.
relative to a finance officer and a city manager and any other department head, or if not embedded in the home rule charter document, they would be elaborated upon or enumerated in the administrative code that's a supplement to the home rule charter that council would adopt by an ordinance. So either way, you would cover the qualifications, either again in the home rule charter that would be approved by the voters, or the administrative code that would be approved by council by ordinance.
So I think the first thing we need to talk about structure. If anybody disagrees, I think we need to decide the structure of the council itself first. Item by item, instead of trying to do everything at once. I'd be in favor of the council manager form that Michael was talking about, with the council not being in charge of it. Specific department, you have a 5-member council that's policy. The main duties of the city manager would be to run all the functions of the city, which basically is done now.
What about what Bethany and, was it Nick? Or Bethany and somebody said that they appreciated having somebody on council that was part of that could be the staff's kind of liaison to council.
Yeah, that was Bethany.
Yeah, I think she said they liked having that, right?
Yes.
So I think, sorry, to jump,
Yeah, I'm done.
I think the way to handle that, because I heard that too, and I pushed what Debbie and Michael were kind of moving towards. But I think we could, in the same way that Michael just described, and that is in the manual for how we're going to do things, that we would say that a council member would be appointed to each of the each of the bodies of the city employees as a liaison, and not, and take away the idea that they're running the show. That just muddies the water. It opens you up to a council member with bad motives can really make a mess, or ignorance can really make a mess. And then it makes everybody in the department, well, who am I reporting to? Am I reporting to the city manager? Am I reporting to the council person? What if these two people disagree? But I think there is value in having a connection between council and maybe the way to do that. I think the way to do that, actually, I can tell you this because I got into this situation with Mick, that the code people asked me to come to a meeting. And I said, sure, I'm the head of the department, I'll go to the meeting. And Mick rightly bristled at how come he wasn't at that meeting. It seemed like an end run around him. Now, thankfully, he and I don't have any, he talked it out. He told me how miffed he was about that, and we worked that out. So really, I think the council member should work through the manager. The city manager should ask a council member to be the council liaison. And then it's the city manager who's gonna say to that city council member, hey, we're having a meeting today, we'd like you to be there, or whatever, and eliminate the confusion.
Right. So there's still somebody who's kind of
Connected,
can kind of be like an outside sort of unbiased person in a situation, but isn't in charge of it.
Right.
I think
To
what
me,
that
that's
does,
adding another layer to the organizational chart that's not really needed.
The liaison or the head?
The council member being a liaison to what?
Between the council and that department, I guess. But we don't have to, we don't have to
No, we're talking out loud.
yeah, we don't have to decide that, because I would say whatever's decided there should go into not the home rule charter, but into the
Administrative code.
what did you call that, Michael?
It's called an administrative code.
Administrative code, okay.
Yes, yes.
The home rule charter would have the city manager being in charge of the heads.
Yes.
They have no
yeah, well,
reference to the
that
city
seems like
council.
that puts a load on the mayor. Or that,
It's already
It-
doing it.
It definitely does, but you have to, I think we're better served if it's clear who's responsible
Right.
for what.
I
Yeah.
agree with
and
that.
what does the mayor do in all of this? Where's the mayor fit in?
I think we have to play back his interview. That was, because he explained what he did in that interview, but I just off the top of my head, I couldn't. But it is posted online. We could go listen to it again where he described what he does. Unless Doug has that.
But that is public safety right now, in the same way that the public, but each of the council members. So he has, or not public safety.
Yeah, I'm really public
Right, you're public
safety, which
safety.
seems
He's the
weird,
police.
which
He's the police.
doesn't,
He's the police department.
right.
So, yes. But would that shift to Mick in that, so that's the second.
Well, I think that's the big thing, right? We gotta,
Or to the council, to the manager, city manager.
Well, no, I'm not even gonna say.
Well, I'm gonna, Michael, in the forum with the council manager, what exactly would a mayor do?
I'll never say.
The mayor could be the presiding officer of council,
Yep.
like he or she is now, and would run the meetings similar to what the mayor does now. And they would be an equal member of council with an equal vote, like the mayor is now. And then you have to decide as a member of council, the mayor is a member of council, would the mayor continue to oversee the police department, equivalent to the discussion that we just had with regards to other members of council serving as a liaison, but not being a director of the department like you are now under the third class city code. So these are some subtleties and nuances and distinguishing factors that you have to think through and talk about and get a comfort level. So that's generally what a mayor could do. The mayor could continue to be elected at large, or some charters have where they're a member of council and the council votes to appoint the mayor to preside over meetings and to, do those kind of things, and would have an equal vote, like I said. So, there's shades of gray here.
I have another question for you, Michael. It may sound silly, but, and I think I mentioned it before, why can't we, as Jerry, I know Jerry's collected home rule charters from around the area, take one of those and just, as a Word document, and just change the name to Beaver Falls. And
First, you gotta decide what you want.
Yeah.
You don't know which one you're gonna pick up.
pick one.
We're not all gonna fit.
That's what
That's what Debbie's
That's what
gonna do.
Debbie's for.
Debbie's
You're with a
gonna do.
consultant.
Debbie will do that.
Okay, all
'Cause
right.
I have like a little
See,
note here that says, look at Clairton's as a template. I don't know why I wrote it, but for some reason I wrote, look at Clairton. So,
Because that's the mayor we interviewed.
Or the manager.
Well,
yeah,
here's the
you,
Manager,
Yeah.
manager.
okay.
yeah. And I think it's a workable charter document. To answer the gentleman's question about picking a charter and building upon it, piggybacking on it. Each home rule charter is a specific, unique case study of that community and the dynamics, the political dynamics, the managerial dynamics, and just the personnel dynamics of how that community operates or not operates, functionally or dysfunctionally, that a home rule charter has the opportunity to reset and correct and lay a foundation for a more seamless, productive, efficient, accountable, transparent exercise of government. So it's a good idea to look at these home rule charters, and I'll use the word cherry pick what you find to be relevant and applicable to a Beaver Falls model. But I would caution on using a home rule charter and just changing names.
Well, you have to.
Yeah,
You
definitely.
just
Most
can't change names
definitely.
and go. You have to read it.
Make sure it fits.
Yeah, you have to make sure it fits. But for
I mean-
example, I had talked to Paula, and she took the third-class city copy of the third-class city that she follows, and she checkmarked all the sections. And I think there's like, I don't know, 12 or 15 of them maybe, that would have to be in our home rule charter. Those sections. And that would be easy enough to to identify.
Well, when you say sections, I interpret that to mean areas of governance that you need to accommodate. One is council, one is the management of the community, another is the finance management of the community, another one is the policing, the fire, the public works of the community, the code enforcement, the recreation, the purchasing, the contracting, the procurement.
That was all in there. I mean, including, there were definitions for city manager, what the city manager is defined as, or a council member, his description, the mayor, what the mayor does, you know, those were all in there. So,
Right, but I would uh, suggest that you not use language, use the language in the third class city code and then flip it into a home rule charter. I want to again make the point that you're dealing with articles that are in the third class city code that are generic to any form of government, whether you're a city, a borough, or a township, that you have to make part of a home rule charter.
well, these would be the articles that are in the Beaver Falls third class city. I mean, they're,
And I addressed a lot of those in the matrix that I put together. I think that I presented in October, November to the Government Study Commission that I think has been posted on your website or some public domain that people have access to. It was a 3-column document where the left column was what you have in the third class city code now. The second column is what you would have under a council manager form of government, home rule form of government. And the third was a mayor, a strong mayor council manager form of government under home rule. And I covered a lot of those articles that Paulo identified.
okay, thank you.
It's titled that too. The title says comparison matrix. Third class.
Yes,
Yeah, I have that.
yes.
What I pull out every week.
Yeah.
Refer to.
Is there any interest in having some of our council elected by ward versus citywide?
I remember that coming up.
I like the idea of it. I have concerns about how that would happen practically speaking.
What was that, Jerry?
I said, is there any interest in having some of the council elected by ward rather than citywide? And I was thinking if we had 7 council members, 3 of them could be at large, and 3 of them could be by ward. The wards would be like 1 and 2 would be 1 council, 3 and 4 and 5 and 6.
That makes sense to me if you're combining wards. I just wonder if there would be enough. What if there somebody didn't want to run in those wards? What do you do that?
That's possible.
Yeah,
Just throwing out the idea.
I mean, I love the idea because I do think it may end up creating a more representative, perhaps council, but I don't know. Because again, it's just like, I don't know how, I mean, we've had a couple people run for council that haven't been on council for a long period of time over the past few years, but not a ton.
I just wonder if some people don't run because of the fact that it's citywide.
They don't run for Senate.
I said, I'm just wondering, I don't know the answer. I wonder if some people don't run because it is citywide rather than Belmont.
Or maybe they're not successful because it's citywide and people don't know who they are. Meanwhile, their neighbors know them.
Right.
I thought it was interesting, even just my results from being on the ballot for home rule, the wards that I live in, people are like, yeah, sure, great, that's good. And like other ones were like, we have no idea who that girl is.
Right.
So I totally get it.
Mhm.
I totally get it.
Do you have any thoughts on that, Michael?
I have seen home rule charters that remain at large like they were. I've seen home rule charters where they go from at large to by district, and I've seen combinations thereof where you have a majority of the full governing body elected by a ward, and you have at-large members that would make up a less than majority. For example, you have a 5-member count, with Braddock Borough, they adopted a home rule charter and they're soon to adopt their administrative code. Their charter went into effect this month. They went from a 6-member by ward council to a 7-member council where they kept the 6 wards. Sorry, they kept the 3 wards, 2 elected per ward, but they went to 1 at-large member that made it a 7-member council. We debated that. I mean, I was part of the discussion, but the council members debated, well, if we have a 7-member council, maybe 4 at large and 3 from one ward each. But it came down to 6 and 1 because they wanted to maintain the ward system, 2 elected per ward and then 1 at large to kind of give an overview. So whatever you feel would meet the needs of the electorate and the representation that you're seeking with regard to having a combined at large and ward system. If you do change from all at large, which I think you have now, right,
Right.
to a combination district and at large, that gives you, I believe, well, let me rephrase. What would happen after the home rule charter is adopted would be, before it goes into effect, because normally there's a 1-year transition period, city council would appoint a apportionment committee to literally reapportion the borough. If you're electing any members by ward, to come up with a relative equal proportional population within the wards before the charter goes into effect.
I will not serve on that committee.
I know, Doug kind of chuckled at that.
Yeah, we heard it.
Early chuckle at it. Well, I mean, just the work to be able to do just another thing that you'd have to figure out how to do and.
Difficult, but probably worth it. I do like the idea of having some, I mean, difficult that I don't want to do, but I do love the idea of having more representative of each.
Would that be a
I like that.
selling point that you pass the resolution?
Well, I noticed that that was
think it
in that
would.
nice, that survey that went around. And I think a survey like that is maybe something that Kirsten and I should start working on as far as the education piece. Because the survey is more to educate, I think. Like, people are gonna answer it and that's helpful information for us to have, but for them to even know what exactly we are deciding on and talking about, I think is really helpful.
You would be working with the population figures of the 2020 census that I think would be out by the time the charter is put up for a vote, you know, by November of this year, I'm assuming. And then again, you'd have a transition year in 2022 to help put the administrative code together. Again, part of which would be looking at the equal, you know, relative equal proportional population for each ward or district, whatever you want to call it.
Would you have to reapportion every 10 years?
Pardon me?
So would you have to reapportion every 10 years?
Correct.
Michael, would you have to do it that way? We have an existing ward system, but there's no attempt in our ward system to keep the populations the same. So couldn't we, do you have to make it the same so that the mathematics work? Or
When you say ward,
go by the however the ward, because that would be, I think that would be super confusing to people to add another ward.
well, I don't know that,
Ward.
well, it all depends on whether you are literally adding another ward or you're combining, you know, now let me get back up.
Yeah.
Are your council members elected by a ward or are they at large?
All are at large.
Okay, so what ward are you talking about?
So we
You talk
have
about-
existing wards. We have,
Who voted?
I always get confused about this, but it's.
Don't confuse that with voting precincts.
6 voting wards in the city.
Don't confuse that with where your elected official, where your elected council members would be coming from. That's a separate matter that's really determined through the county election system.
Right, right, okay. I see, okay, so then, yeah, all right.
Another word for a voting ward is a precinct where people go to vote.
Yeah,
But the county does that through the election board.
got it.
But under a home rule charter, you could designate out of all at large that you may have 2 wards where you have 3 at large and 2 by ward elected. But again, the mayor would normally remain at large.
Right.
Again, unless you want to have council determine who the mayor is through council electing the mayor. So it depends. And we can talk further about that.
Yeah,
We're getting kind of deep.
Yeah,
Well, that seems super important.
yeah. That was something I never even
Yeah.
thought about,
Uh-huh.
was council just saying, this is who we want as mayor.
Yeah, it's like having an executive. It's like we
Yeah.
voted to have you be the president of the board, or chair of the board.
Was under duress.
See, I think that what the Beaver Falls voters used to now is voting for a mayor who's at large.
right.
Yeah.
And maybe pivoting to council electing that person. The voters may feel as though, well, maybe you're taking something away from us.
Yeah,
I
I don't
And
like that.
you
That was
got to
a-
way engage that.
I think that'd be a hard sell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get major pushback.
And a lot of times
They're not
when
accept-
charters do not pass, it's sometimes just on one issue.
Mhm,
Yeah, yeah,
mhm.
Which is where a survey might help us identify that.
yeah, yeah, I think that would help identify what the hot button issues are
Mhm.
that we might seek to, I mean, but if you're taking away any sort of executive functioning, not executive, but like if you're taking away, if you're leaving the mayor as a weak mayor, where they don't have a tie-breaking vote, they have the same vote power as council, and they don't have any, if we decided to take away the police, for example, from the mayor, then the mayor really is just, it's
A council.
it's a figurehead, it's not, yeah, so it's not, so that, then, in that case, if we were to do that, then it definitely doesn't matter who the mayor is.
I don't think the mayor would like to go.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
Oh, I really wouldn't, that's why I'm saying it freely right now.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if you did that, though, I don't know that that's the right move, but if, that's one of the things that we talked about, and if that's the case, then,
But we also can't
We
base
can
our
elect
decision
somebody,
on
but-
who might not like it, you know?
Right, oh, totally.
right, and of course, but I mean, if you elect somebody to do the same job that everybody else is doing in a separate race from the same thing that you know what I mean?
In
So-
certain circles, that would be a selling point.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
it
you- I
would.
Not citywide,
That's
It-
true.
it
What's
most
that?
not
definitely-
citywide, everybody wouldn't think that way.
No,
No.
no, no.
No,
there are- I
but
could-
some
yeah.
would.
There are, yeah.
Yeah, I know. Some would be, yeah, do it, definitely.
So-
but-
Now, I got a question.
Oh,
Is there
no.
an issue with the mayor and the police? With him being in charge of the police? Is there like a current issue or?
No, there is
Oh.
not a current issue.
But there could be.
Right now, I think that works well, but from what I know historically, there have been issues.
Okay, all right.
George is strong, and so he comes in and he can do that, but we haven't always had mayors that are strong like that, and I think those of you that have been more involved in the city throughout your whole life here can probably speak to that better than I can.
And you also got to remember that this home rule charter is not for just today.
Exactly, yeah,
That's the thing.
yeah.
Yeah,
We're not gonna have the same mayor for,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah, we can't write it based on who's here now,
Right,
what
exactly,
we like and what's working now.
exactly.
I
Which is
think
the
we've
tough
had
part.
mayors in the past who had axes to grind,
Mhm,
and they came in and they ground that one axe.
mhm.
And this would even that out. It's a person that has no more power than another council member.
Well, is that what we want?
I'm not there. I'm just,
Yeah, It's just
Oh.
general
I'm just
discussion. right now,
general
yeah.
saying things
Just like
to
we-
say,
We gotta talk it out.
yeah,
Now, I remember, so I wrote this in the minutes, but I don't remember there being, what exactly is particular in Beaver Falls to the mayor position, besides the fact that he oversees the police department, and, runs the meetings? Is there something else that is particular to, like, like ceremonial things or like things that he does?
Yeah,
I would think he
They
has,
represent the city.
Yeah.
Right, does he like go to events as,
What's the name?
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
Angela Head or
Yeah.
some name
I mean,
like that.
someone has to solicit, business.
somebody has to lead the parade.
right,
Like the
exactly.
Christmas tree.
Well, yeah, somebody's got to be that figurehead,
Somebody
and
has to go out there and sell Beaver Falls for,
Yeah.
for
Okay.
businesses to come
Right.
into Beaver Falls.
and is that somebody like if we're talking about this as council just appointing, deciding, oh, that sounds like a good thing for you to do, would that still be that person's function? Would they be that like figurehead mayor that, small town mayor sort of person? Or would those duties kind of like not be as important? You know what I mean?
You could,
I think being mayor is something that you want to do,
Yeah,
would make you good at it.
Hmm.
Because, like I said, that probably could be the face of the city.
Right.
And,
Definitely not for the pay.
you know, giving-
no,
Definitely.
No. Civil service is not.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But, I mean, so we also are in a good position where, George is able to come in and be so present in the city building, even though, because he runs his own business. So he's got that going for him, whereas, it's just like somebody that works a 9 to 5, how do you balance that with your other responsibilities? And but I mean, I don't know, I don't think wanting to be mayor makes you naturally good at it, at all.
Not at all.
I mean, I think, you know what I mean? I mean, I do think it requires a certain person, but I think I don't know. I have this one nightmare scenario that plagues me. I can't say it, but like if that person, that's what I'm always thinking when we think about home rule charter, like if these certain people, got into these positions, people, and generally it's negative people, you know what I mean? But like if those people were to be in these positions, what could go wrong and how can we prevent that by writing a good home rule charter?
Mhm. Yeah,
And it's not necessarily, and I think that's probably for me, like, I don't know, I'm way more on the defensive than the offensive when it comes to this, because I like the idea of things being open to interpretation and to letting people do, what's working for certain groups. I think there has to be a strong element of that, but I do think if we're not thinking through like worst case scenarios, we may live to regret that.
Yeah.
Because we've already talked about some things that can happen. So maybe, we gotta figure out how to get precise with our words in some ways and open in others.
I think Deborah will be
Yeah.
really helpful because
Yeah.
she's seen, I'm sure, she's told us that she's seen some things go poorly.
Yep.
Yeah,
And when is Deborah gonna start?
once we get our grant approved.
Alright.
That's what he was saying would happen towards the end of the month or early next month.
So we
Fingers crossed.
Fingers
might
crossed.
have her by the first meeting of February. We don't know.
Oh, let's see.
Hopefully.
We don't have any funds.
No.
No.
We have $0.
Never have had. any
Michael.
money.
That's why I'm the treasurer and the social media director.
Right.
Yeah, there's nothing for the treasurer to
That's
do.
right.
So,
I've been sitting on my title this whole time.
Mr. Foreman, if we do get approved for that grant, would there be funds to do things like mailings and education, things like that cost money?
The grant that we would approve is specific to paying for the consultant's professional services, the mailings and the postage and other related costs, advertising, that would be borne by the city.
Okay.
In the Home Rule Charter Optional Plans law, there is a requirement that the municipality allocate funding to the Government Study Commission to pay for these miscellaneous expenses,
Okay.
such as mailings and advertising and, promotion and marketing and et cetera. But our grant would just be for consultant professional services.
Okay.
and refreshment.
And-
And the city would be putting in 10% of that total cost of the consultant, along with the other items that are part of the grant request. You know, so it comes to several $1,000s of local cash match that the city would be putting into our 90%. You know, we'd be paying 90%, you'd be paying 10%. Now, a lot of what the city's doing already is in kinds services, you know, by offering you space and electricity and, you know, maybe
Internet.
Yeah, technology.
IT.
right, the technology, right.
Like I said, I'm willing to forego my salary.
We all are. Yeah, I would like to see a nice informational brochure,
Mhm.
but I'm sure it's
Well,
not
that's
gonna,
because,
it's
as
gonna
you can
cost.
see from the crowd behind me,
Right,
we're gonna get to a point and someone's gonna start squawking. They never told me, they never, you know.
yeah, yet we put it, I mean,
Yeah.
there's two different ways they can attend it. You can come in person, you can join by Zoom. It's not like we did not make these meetings accessible. It's
No,
more than accessible, but, I mean, we can't make them come.
There's gonna come an education part at the end.
Yeah,
It'll
Yeah.
pick up once we get a charter out there
Yeah.
Mhm.
and have to defend it.
I'm picturing a mailing, like a mailing that goes to everybody where the envelope even has printing on it that's,
Yeah, that's what I'm
like,
talking, colorful, and
y-
yeah.
yeah, that's really engaging, that makes you want to participate.
Mhm.
And then also some online engagement too, but
Yeah,
I think
those
at
don't
least
come
one
cheap.
mailing would be really helpful.
Yeah,
And
we
that
need
would,
it.
that would
We're not-
drive it.
The reach of social media for something this specific is not.
It's not
normal.
great, yeah.
What about those, like, meetings like in a church or,
Yeah, I would love to do
Neighborhood
some of
watch,
those.
like we
Yeah.
did,
Yeah.
or what is it, Eye on the City, or,
yeah, yeah.
But I would like to have nice printed material
That'd
to
be a
hand
great
Yeah.
down when we go there, and that's where we need
There's a
the
lot
money.
of people that go there, they have no idea.
Yeah.
Okay, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
We're sorry.
Okay, but
We're
that's-
sorry.
That's way down the road.
Yeah, regain
It's
focus.
very important.
So,
Yeah.
So we were looking at structure, which it sounds like everybody's looking at council manager. I could be hearing
Talk
wrong.
about that a little bit,
Yeah.
just for my information, the difference, council manager, manager, council.
You want to look at this real quick?
I have it.
Yeah, it's just easier to,
So
because
What
this is,
what does the city want? What do we want? We want,
to me, it's sounding like council manager is what I'm hearing. That's why I said, am I hearing this wrong, or is that kind of where everybody's leaning towards?
I think you're right.
Is that, Doug, do you get a sense that that's how council would like to see it go?
I don't think so. I think what we heard is things are working fine. We don't need to mess around. You don't need to mess around with that. Just leave the structure the same way it is now.
it's what now? It's-
But I don't think they realize what they're really basically doing is council manager.
I would agree with that. I would like to more clearly say the manager is really powerful here. And
Who works well with the mayor, and the mayor has no problem saying, I'm okay with him just reporting to me, here's what's going on.
yeah,
So it's kind of already there, but they just don't know it.
why not just make him mayor, or manager, mayor?
That's what we gotta figure out.
I don't,
The only thing we're proposing is different is the council not going to be in charge of the department.
That's it.
so far, yes, yeah, and that's gonna remove the big thing from the mayor. But I think that puts the burden of all that primarily on the manager, but then equally on the council.
But we could still leave the police under the mayor in that, correct?
We could do that.
Which isn't like taking off anything really that much from what he does.
I
Well,
disagree
what
with
the
that.
point is you might not have a mayor that's
That breaks the
very
tie.
desirable running a police department.
Yeah, I think that's the
It's the-
thing,
the
is
plan
that
for the
it guards against a mayor, we don't have I don't believe we have a mayor that's a problem right now.
Right.
I think George does a good job. I
Mhm.
think he's been a good mayor. But if we had a bad mayor,
Certainly no.
yeah, now, same is true with the manager. I mean,
Mhm.
it really puts you better get a good manager.
Right.
But
But they're at
that's
the will.
council's job.
Yeah.
That's what they do. They
Yeah,
get a good manager, and if the manager isn't good, they remove the manager from the position.
Also in the home rule, you can list qualifications and what's required for a city manager.
Yeah.
To even apply
Yeah,
to the city. So
Right.
that you get good candidates.
yeah,
Same with, if we go to a finance director.
yeah,
Have to have very specific qualifications.
Yeah.
And then that way it takes out political harms.
Yeah.
Well, I think what Kirsten
Yeah.
said earlier is important here because they're not gonna be there forever.
right.
You know.
Right.
Eventually, Mick's gonna wanna retire, whether you let
can't
him or not.
return, no, he can't. He has to keep working to keep me in my style, of which I've become accustomed.
That is rehearsed. That is rehearsed.
Just flow right there
Yeah.
naturally, yeah.
So it seems to me, I think what we're saying is that if we choose this form of government, that it wouldn't feel that different
It won't.
if we, have it in as a, what do we say, an ordinance in the,
Mhm.
or in the administrative code that the counselors are the liaison, so they still have that contact, but they're not in charge of it. So it wouldn't really feel that different, right?
Should.
Would it
To
feel
me,
different?
it wouldn't feel different.
Okay,
I think, to Chucky Kirkland, who worked in the street department
Mhm.
and now oversees the street department, he's much more of a hands-on, get in there type. I never worked in the code office. I was never a fireman, so I don't have that kind of connection to the things that I oversee. George he's connected to the police department and really interacts big time with the police chief. That would probably, in my mind, that would probably be the biggest thing that would be different. But I think I'm not prepared yet to say that's the way I want to go. But if we did go that way, I think my argument to George would be, my defense of that is, you're doing a great job, but and he knows, you've seen mayors in the past who were very bad, and bad for that relationship with police department. This way, we're gonna spread it out to the whole council, but primarily the manager. The manager is gonna be the person that's really gonna get in there and,
The department's still gonna be managed. It's not like
Right.
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Well, and I mean, Mick clearly is qualified for that.
Well, yeah, that's the beauty in this.
Yeah, in our
This
particular
situation.
situation.
Those same
Yeah.
people that are in charge of those departments now, they can still be in
The
charge
liaison.
unofficially.
Just
Yeah.
a different
You could
title.
have,
Yeah.
you
Called a
could
liaison.
have more or
If-
less
if-
interaction.
That's what I'm saying. To every council member, the way that's handled, they didn't tell me, this is what you have to do. They just said, you're in charge of code and you're in charge of fire department. They didn't say, you have to have monthly meetings, you have to, do anything. Okay, so my suggestion, we're about at an hour,
Little over.
so I don't want to go too much longer. But I think this has been, in my mind, this has been great,
Mhm.
because now we're getting into it. I think at our next meeting, and I know we had the question about whether we're gonna meet once a month or
Right.
twice, and that can still, but at our next meeting, I think we should revisit this question to start with and say, what have you been thinking about with regard to this issue? And then if you know, we're still kind of in a consensus mode on that. Then we move to one of the next things, which I think is the financial stuff. And one that Michael didn't mention that that is on mine is really the chief reason we were brought into existence, and that is to try to change the taxing structure from the current way that the taxing's done on property tax. And but I think revisit what we did tonight, then move to the financial structure, and then I think the next one after that is taxation.
Sounds good.
I would agree.
I thought before we get into the taxation changes, we had to go to the home rule charter first before we could change the property tax.
Right.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we're gonna, I believe, maybe you don't, maybe you want to leave well enough alone. I think it's clear it's going to be the lightning rod issue, I think, is the taxation piece.
Because what's it, it's 34% now, right?
34 mils.
Yeah,
Mills, yeah.
yeah.
And
Well,
so,
that's not, real estate's not gonna be a big issue, it's gonna be increasing in the
Income tax.
Right.
okay.
And I think we've got to talk that through and really, hammer that out. So that's going to really get us going when we get there. But this is good. We've switched. I think, look at how much more knowledgeable we are when we start talking about these things now, instead of just kind of, we've really, everybody's done a great job of figuring the thing out.
And thank you, Michael, for your tutelage
Yes.
to help us figure this
Yeah,
out.
you've done a great job with this, Michael.
You're very welcome, everyone.
Make things very clear.
Yep.
So,
Thank you.
sounds like we still need 2 meetings a month, huh?
I think we do.
Yeah, that was my next question on the agenda. Do we want to go to 1 or do we still need to meet twice a month?
We're supposed to decide whether we want home rule charter by the 9th month, so we don't know.
I think we know that
Structure
now.
together, and we'll be able to make that decision, so I think we have to make twice a month.
I thought we already decided that.
We made
Yeah,
that
we
decision.
did. We
here.
voted on that.
We voted on that
It's-
tonight.
It's
Yes.
voted, it's in the
Oh, I
minutes.
didn't see that.
You voted
You-
on it.
You seconded it.
You said it, you said aye.
And then,
No, we said
No.
we want to go ahead with
No.
doing it.
That was not a straw vote.
You-
I agree.
You agreed.
Jerry, you seconded that one.
I agree with myself, yeah.
Take a nap over there for a
Has
minute.
me.
Yeah. He's got a time vortex over there.
Yeah,
Twice, we're gonna
We're
keep it
still
at twice. For now, we're gonna keep it at twice.
the same,
I
Leave
think
it at
once we
status
get
quo.
through these things, then once we're kind of into the meat of
Yeah.
writing it, we can probably.
Well, we're not writing it, right?
Right.
Well, we're getting, yeah, we're
No,
getting
but
help.
We're gonna be,
We're
I
gonna
think
say, here's
it's-
what we want.
Yep.
Make it happen.
I don't think we need meetings twice a month to handle the education piece.
Right.
But what we'll probably end up filling that time with though is doing meetings out in the community though. I can see
Yep.
that happening.
Yeah.
So
So instead of us being here, we'll be out at
Yep.
some event,
possibly, yeah.
hosting an event maybe.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
That's an idea.
Yeah, we can host a HRC information event.
Yep, we can do them maybe in every ward.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Yeah,
We,
we feed them, they will come.
that's true.
I always found that.
Yep.
We do, can we ask, Dion's, do you have any questions or comments? We're now to that portion of the evening, right? Virginia?
Yes, we are.
You can unmute if you need to.
You go through this every day, don't you, Regina? Are you there?
Like,
Are you
okay,
there?
you can talk to me, okay?
Yeah, is anybody there?
Say something, I see you.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, no comment or question, thanks.